I noticed you've got at least a couple of foreigners at your studio, which, I think that a lot of the studios outside the US, you usually have to be a generalist before you're anything else. And I never thought there'd be a day where I'd ever get to specialize or do anything like that. It was always keep your modeling skills up and your character animation skills up, because you never know what's gonna, be the job tomorrow. And I think that a lot of smaller studios or smaller countries, usually you have to do everything. And I think it's so powerful because once you're able to do anything, you or everything, you can do anything. And that, I think that's like one of the biggest crux of going to a big studio, is that it's like you animate the snowflakes in the background, and you're on
Right.
footprints, and it's not a chance to really grow as an artist. Whereas it's somewhere small, you're going to be uncomfortably forced to always need to take on
Right.
opportunities.
Well, and you develop an appreciation for the other people that you're handing stuff off to and getting stuff from, right? Because like if you know how they operate, you might be able to give them productive feedback. If something's not working properly, you can say, "Oh, I feel like maybe, the setting's wrong, or that's why I've not received this properly."
Mm.
Or you can troubleshoot stuff. You can troubleshoot stuff on your own. You don't need to kick stuff off to a different department and wait, 2 days while you're sitting there, for them to get back to you. Certainly there's a time and place for specialization, but obviously, like you said, if you have the ability to be plugged in several different places in a pipeline, you are much more flexible
Mhm.
than if you only have one skill.
I guess for both of you, like, what do you look for when hiring artists and interviewing artists? And are there any red flags or things that you find people tend to do, whether purposely or not, that tend to, raise some alarms and perhaps cost them the job?
One of the things that we really value in artists, if they've been in the industry for a while, is solid histories at the previous companies that they've worked for. If you do see an artist's resume where they're only spending a few months at a time
Hmm.
and they keep changing jobs, sometimes the fear is like, why did they not end up on staff? Or why did they stay someplace for such a short period of time? Was there nobody there who said, "Oh, this person's indispensable, they're great, you should keep them"? Obviously, there are shows where a lot of the crewing of the show is project based. So you would look, if they had a short tenure at a particular location, you would look to see if they'd had any previous tenures there or subsequent tenures there, and like, oh, if they keep getting called back, then clearly they're good. But if they've worked at every different studio for a few months at a
Once.
time, the assumption is not only have they raised their rate between every single job, but they may not be worth that rate if no one had them stick around.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. And I'm curious for you too, Cory. I guess one thing I'll comment on, because I heard that this morning too, and it's a really logical thing. I'm always going to self-reflect, because I know a lot of my career I kind of loved jumping from one fire to another, and a lot of producers love me for that, because I'd usually be like, I like stress, give me the 9/11 jobs. But that's something that I quickly realized from a hiring perspective, was that yeah, the repeat business, I think is really a critical indicator, because otherwise, like, if you only work somewhere once, then why weren't you welcome back, or why didn't you go back? But if you kind of build that relationship with multiple vendors, and you're kind of jumping back and forth, it's so critical to kind of look on that resume for, the people coming back, to make sure that they were, I guess, welcome back, versus everyone doing a stint at one place and never again, or anything like that. For you, Cory, I was kind of curious, like, what were your thoughts on that too?
I think too, like being able in a resume or in a LinkedIn profile, seeing progression, seeing like, oh,
Mhm.
I was an artist, I was a lead, or I was a senior, I was a supervisor, or even just one level. You recognize that somebody saw value in this person, they had an opportunity for them, and they had them take it. Like that's a really big indicator. And obviously that requires duration of stay at a place too. And I know visual effects can be a fairly freelance, kind of a gig economy sort of situation sometimes, but I also think people can value having a longer term stint somewhere too. And that usually means that people are going to be loyal, they're going to be invested in sort of the long haul, where if people are just coming for a short stay, then they tend to be less invested in the company, in their peers, et cetera, and it tends to be a little bit more transactional. I think that's less true for things like commercials, for example, where the project duration sort of insists on a certain sort of mentality and operating philosophy. But in general, I do agree with that. I think for new people, just having that sort of eager kind of helpfulness and not being afraid of just getting in a little bit over your head. You want to get afraid of drowning, but you don't want to be afraid of swimming too hard, I guess. It's a good metaphor. One of the things we really look for in new people is how many personal projects have they done? How many independent, outside of school or an educational institution, have they sort of put together themselves? We were just actually talking to a couple of students last week, and many people have access to everything they need to produce something just on their own. They have just an iPhone, or if they're in an institution, usually there's a DSLR of some kind that they can grab. You can just go out and you could just film a super simple, rotating camera move in a parking lot, and you can 3D track that. You can shoot an HDRI there. You can light it. You can render that, and you can comp it all just by yourself with just what you either know now or what you can glean from a few YouTube videos. And that sort of level of self-teaching is really indicative of someone who's going to kind of strive and be next level as they get up into the upper echelon of visual effects jobs.
Right, and the sort of filmmaker's mindset you get from doing that, it's very different from the just like, oh, here, you give me the work and I do it, and it doesn't matter how long it takes me to do it. Versus the, oh, I have a self-imposed deadline. I got to finish this for a film festival or whatever. And every, hour that I haven't figured out how to do this shot or solve this problem is on me, essentially, right? Like getting that sort of attitude of ownership is very important.
Every hour that you don't find the render button is going to cost you.
Yeah.
Yeah.